So I would appreciate, to the best you can, describing thus what you believe, each of you, is the current public attitude in the Arab world generally, and more generally in the Muslim world, towards bin Laden, and if there's a trend, is there growing support or not growing support? Ms. Bronson, could I ask you first?
Sure. It's obviously a big question, and there's a lot that contributes to what we see. Part is the kind of education throughout the world that students are receiving. In sort of anecdotal evidence, somebody I was speaking to from Eastern Saudi Arabia said when he was growing up, he's about in 50s, 60s, he received about an hour and a half of religious education a week in school. His children are receiving 3 to 4 hours a day. Take that and think about the kind of the kind of funding that's going into mosques and schools across the region, the kind of things that we're hearing about that are being taught. We have a real problem. It's sort of generations coming up who've been schooled on nothing but a very awful strand of what the religion means. Add that to the fact that the Middle East, the Arab Development Report was referenced, is the furthest behind in political freedoms and liberties. Economically, it's stagnant. Populations are bulging. Most of the population in the region is below 50%. Most of the population is below the age of 15. And they're not receiving the kinds of skills that will get them jobs. So they're unemployed and they're hanging around. And there's nothing to do. And smart kids who come back from American universities, Europe, come back and can't do anything with what they've learned. It's a stagnant political culture. But why I sort of focus on the sort of education part of it is my frustration that we are not offering alternatives to what is going on in the region. In the late 1990s in the Gulf, we had a very heavy military presence compared to historically where we've been. We offered very little social and economic policies to bolster or support our military presence. We cut back on all the kinds of programs that we used to have to woo Europeans to the United States. If you think of it now, it's somewhat crazy that we felt that we had to woo Europeans, but surely if we felt we had to have good exchange programs with the Europeans, triple that for what is required for the rest of the world where the cultures are so different. When I was doing my research looking at the sort of social and economic lack of policy, I had people asking me, where is U.S. policy taking us? And in some way that can be a very frustrating question, because the first response is, take yourself somewhere. Don't wait for the U.S. to do it. Do it yourself. But we are very involved militarily abroad. We are notably uninvolved in other ways. And I think as the Commission thinks about where we go, it is so striking to me that the obvious lesson of September 11th isn't to get heavily involved in supporting secular education in Pakistan. That seems like a somewhat obvious one given what we know. And yet that doesn't seem to be a fundamental focus. So I think we do have to come down strong on policies emanating from the region that we don't agree with. I think that's half the battle. I think the other half is to be creative about how to have programs and ideas out there that allow our potential supporters to support us. Right now, I believe we're offering precious little in the area of the world that we have defined as a significant problem for the United States.